latest on Singapore's vaccination rollout, those under 45 will be invited to book their appointments from June.
Under proposed changes, e-bicycle users must pass a theory test before they can ride on the roads.
And the investigation into one of Taiwan's worst train accidents in decades focuses on the truck that rolled down onto the tracks.
It's 5:30 p.m. here in Singapore. Welcome to The Big Story, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. I'm Olivia Koi.
I'm Haryanto Dimane. You can subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode.
Those who promote or take part in illegal street races will face heftier fines as well as double the mandatory jail time if proposed amendments to the Road Traffic Act are passed into law.
Under these amendments, first-time offenders will face a maximum fine of $5,000 and up to a year in jail. Repeat offenders will be fined up to $10,000 and jailed for up to 2 years.
The courts will also be given more leeway to disqualify motorists from driving if they're convicted in road rage cases.
Other proposed changes to traffic laws will also make it an offence to ride electric bicycles on roads without passing a mandatory theory test. E-bikes are banned from footpaths but allowed on roads, cycling paths and shared paths like park connectors.
Well, this move will align the Road Traffic Act with the recently amended Active Mobility Act, and e-bike riders will need to pass a single online theory test governed by both acts. The Home Affairs Ministry said the test will cover path and road safety to ensure that riders are aware of active mobility rules, a general code of conduct, as well as safe riding behaviour.
The proposed amendments also include a new offence penalising companies and individuals who employ or intentionally or negligently allow a person to ride a power-assisted bike on roads if they haven't passed the theory test. Well, our continued Covid-19 fight, a major issue raised in Parliament today as well, with MPs filing 14 vaccination-related questions. Senior Minister of State for Health Janil Puthucheary said residents below 45 years old will start receiving invitations to book their slots for vaccination from June, if all goes as planned.
People under the age of 45 have also been patiently waiting for their turn. Based on the current schedule, we plan to begin inviting them in June to book their slots. If all goes well, we will complete the vaccination program as scheduled by the end of the year.
Dr. Janil also said that as at April the 3rd, more than 468,000 people have completed the full vaccination regimen.
To date, around 60% of eligible seniors aged 70 and above and close to 70% of those aged 60 to 69 have received the vaccination or booked their appointments. Close to 500,000 residents aged 45 to 59 have registered for their vaccinations so far.
We're encouraged by this strong response. Those who have registered will progressively receive invitations through SMS to make their appointments for their vaccination. This may take some time given the number of people who have registered. To date, about 17% of eligible individuals have received the vaccination or booked their appointments, and we expect the rest should receive the SMS by the middle of May, and they can expect a booking slot by early June.
And elaborating on our passport plan, Dr. Janil said the government and international counterparts are discussing possible mutual recognition of vaccination certificates.
Responding to questions from the House, he added that these talks are still in the early stages and that the vaccine passport will not influence Singapore's decision to approve specific types of vaccines.
Transport Minister Ong Ye Kung also clarified that vaccine passports are subject to different levels of safety considerations.
As for how many countries we are speaking to, there are many. But let me differentiate this. I actually don't quite like the term vaccination passports. It gives you the impression like we carry a passport, we can go anywhere, It doesn't work like that. I think what happened is every healthcare authority, after vaccination, issue a vaccination certificate that has to be verifiable, tamper-proof. And then we talk to other regions and authorities to mutually recognize our certificates. And after you mutually recognize, then you ask yourself, then so what? Do you therefore, which is a question that Ms. Fumiha asked, therefore you're subject to shorter quarantine, fewer tests, and these are things that we have to discuss. And I think the first criteria when we discuss is that how safe is this region? Actually, if a place is safe, such as Brunei, New Zealand, Australia, even before vaccination, we already allow them in without vaccinations because that place is safe. So that is the first and foremost criteria. Is the place safe? And if it's moderately safe, then we can talk about with vaccinations, how far do we lower the risk and what other relaxation can we accord?
First today, back to the office for more employees with COVID-19 rules at the workplace being relaxed from today.
Now take a look at the commuting crowd streaming out of Raffles Place MRT station this morning. Most of them office workers making their way to work. And over at Marina Bay Financial Centre, the office crowd was also seen streaming in around 9 a.m.
Now, although 75% of staff can return to the workplace, people whom the Straits Times spoke to said this crowd size has been the case for months. A security guard who works near Raffles Place said he didn't see any difference.
Meanwhile, for Rebecca Kwa, a financial consultant who alighted at Raffles Place MRT station, made it a point to leave home 5 minutes earlier, well, just in case. But she noted that at no point on her way to work did she feel her personal space was intruded upon, unlike during pre-COVID-19 times.
Ms. Loh Pek Hem, president of the Singapore Human Resources Institute, joins us now. As you know, companies are implementing a hybrid work model, for example, having more staff back 2 or 3 times a week. But moving forward, how would this arrangement shape productivity, work relationships, office dynamics, and so on?
If we implement hybrid work arrangements correctly, it will actually be a win-win, and this will mean that companies will benefit, employees will benefit. And what I mean by this is fundamentally, having staff going back to the office 2 to 3 times a week, it is a good start, okay? Versus during circuit breaker when we are all forced to work from home. While some people enjoy the benefits of working from home, there are also a lot of employees who actually are very stressed working from home, and they would rather go back to the office. So it's a matter of how we strike that balance, so that the company benefits, the employee benefits, and it will be a win-win for both.
Right. Ms. Loh, most of us, if not all, have gotten used to working from home over the past year. Now, some even prefer it, like what you mentioned. What are your suggestions then on how firms can entice their employees back to the office?
I think in the first place, working from home, it is not an entitlement, and it was never designed to be an entitlement, only to benefit the employees. I think the work from home arrangements or hybrid work arrangements, it is really an arrangement to allow the business to continue to operate and to allow the employees to continue to contribute, taking into consideration some of the lifestyle changes that both the employer as well as the employee have to make. So rather than see it only as, is a benefit only for the employees and employers have to entice people to go back to the office, I think as we slowly ease off getting people back into the office and with the use of technology, I think employers need to, again, reap the benefits of what we have invested in terms of technology. And really, if those people who can work productively remotely by use of virtual teams and virtual meetings and all that, we should let those proceed. Okay. And in instances where we need people to come back, that is actually the normal mode of work. And I'm sure employees are quite happy to return back to the office. So it's never an entitlement, and it is actually a business imperative. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't think there is a need for companies to entice the employees to come back to work. And employees, I think, generally want to make sure that the company is successful. And if the employer in the past year have trusted the employees that they are indeed doing a good job, even though they're working remotely, I think that should continue.
Well, that's a really interesting point, Ms. Loh. You know, working from home in the past year has also cast a spotlight on work-life balance. Last June, a 4-day work week was raised by MPs in Parliament. Is a hybrid work model a precursor to a 4-day work week? You think?
Considering Singapore, we are so short of labour, we need to augment our current pool of labour with foreign talent. So honestly, I don't think that is a solution. Okay. On the other hand, I think if we do a good hybrid work arrangements, and if organizations or companies can work with their union, work with your HR, and work with your employees and have that conversation, and instead of a 20% a 4-day work week, if we can consider hybrid work arrangements where you work 3 to 4 days a week, and then, you know, for 1 or 2 days, you actually work from home and you are still working. Okay. And with the use of technology, you can continue to be productive. So if we can have that conversation and check with the workforce, I'm sure our HR practitioners are in a good position to advise the business leaders, as well as work with our union counterparts to see what is the best work arrangement that can optimize business results for the organization, and at the same time, keep your employees engaged and productive. Mm-hmm. So I used to work in Hewlett-Packard, and in HP, the famous HP way was really, you know, everybody wants to do a good job. You give them the right tools, the right environment, the right culture, and the right level of trust. Everybody will do a good job and they'll deliver on the promise that they have given to you.
Right, great insights there, Ms. Loh. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've been speaking to SHRI President, Ms. Loh Peckham. As more return to the workplace, here's an update on our COVID-19 situation. 17 new cases were confirmed today, all imported, and placed on stay-home notice or isolated when they arrived here. Now more details will be released tonight.
From April 2020 to the end of last month, more than 7,500 fines were issued to people who breached safe distancing rules in public spaces. Another 1,800 fines went to those who didn't wear masks during the same period. The Manpower Ministry also fined more than 300 companies since March 2020 for violations of safe management measures. Among them, close to 140 were ordered to cease operations and were allowed to resume only after the breaches were rectified.
In other local headlines, a man who allegedly killed another man in a Bedok Reservoir Road flat this past Saturday was charged with murder.
The 49-year-old is said to have stabbed the victim, but there's no further information on the weapon used at this point. His case has been adjourned to April the 12th.
Meanwhile, 2 commanders from the Singapore Civil Defence Force, previously convicted of reduced charges in the 2018 ragging death case, will face their original, more serious charges. This after the High Court today overturned an earlier ruling.
Kenneth Chong Chibun and Narzan Muhammad Nazi were found guilty of intentionally aiding the servicemen to cause grievous hurt to Corporal Kok Yuan Chin, who drowned in a pump well. For abetting the causing of a grievous hurt by a rash act, the 2 officers could be jailed for up to 4 years or fined up to $10,000 or both. Last September, they were each sentenced to 10 weeks jail.
In Taiwan, now while rescue efforts are still being carried out to extricate the train wreckage from the tunnel, investigations are also ongoing to determine why a truck had slipped downhill from a construction site, resulting in a collision and derailment that killed at least 50 people.
The truck operator, who was detained earlier, is out on bail. He said he would take full responsibility of the crash. The authorities are still trying to determine whether he had neglected to use the emergency brake or whether the truck had malfunctioned.
The 8-car Taroko Express train had been nearly full with about 490 passengers. 120 or so held standing room only tickets. Now, according to the National Fire Agency, the train was traveling from Taipei to the southeastern city of Taitung when it derailed close to tourist hotspot
Hualien around 9:30 a.m. local time.
The train was coming out of a tunnel when it apparently hit a truck which had rolled onto the track. The last few train cars slammed against the tunnel wall. Identifying victims has been a slow and difficult process as rescuers continue efforts to retrieve the wreckage and recover remains of the casualties.
The Straits Times' Taiwan correspondent Catherine Wei joins us with the latest. Hi Catherine, welcome to the show. Now you were at the crash site in Hualien over the weekend. What did you observe?
I went to a hospital first and then the funeral home and then the crash site. And at the site, authorities were still working to extract the train from the tunnel because most of it was still stuck inside. It derailed and the first 3 to 4 carriages were pretty crumpled up. So there was debris everywhere. And while they had removed what they believe was most of the passengers alive and dead from the carriages, there may still be human remains inside. So that's what they're still doing now. And I noticed that, so we were able to reach the construction site that sat a little bit above the tracks where the accident had occurred and where a construction truck was parked. So the truck had rolled onto the tracks. Maybe the brakes had malfunctioned. We don't know yet, but it being on the tracks led to the train crash because the train conductor or the operator only had about 6-7 seconds to react when the train left a former tunnel and was about to enter this one. And he slammed on the brakes, but there wasn't really enough time. The crash still happened, and the construction site was pretty. It was very bare. The slope that the truck was parked on, it was really hard for us to walk on foot too because it was unpaved. It was pretty rocky and sandy, and even for humans, it was a lot of slipping and sliding. So you can imagine the truck just not being able to park there really well. So I think he shouldn't have parked it on the slope in the first place. And also we noted that the construction sign put there said that the site was meant for a construction to uphold the safety around train tracks. It was a project commissioned by the Taiwan Railways administration. So that made it extra ironic that a safety construction project actually caused such a big accident.
Well, Catherine, you mentioned earlier that, rescuers are still trying to locate human remains in the tunnel and in the debris of the train. Can you elaborate on the latest on the rescue efforts?
Okay, so I think on Saturday night, what was believed to be the 51st dead was discovered inside one carriage. It was crushed under very heavy debris, so they couldn't remove the body. They had gotten the DNA of the remains and had them examined, but later discovered it was just a body part that belonged to one victim who had already been identified. And just by this, authorities said there could be similar happenings or similar body remains scattered in the debris. They are not the top priority now because it would be hard to locate them without moving the train out first. So they're still working to really move the hardware first. And they have brought in incense, burnt the incense, and talked to the victims and said, this is what we're doing now, and we're asking for your understanding.
Catherine, so once the extrication process is completed, only then proper investigations can be conducted. What might be the areas of focus?
I think a part of the investigation has already begun because yesterday, that was Sunday, authorities found at the mouth of the tunnel the dash cam that belonged to the truck that rolled onto the tracks. So there should be 2 memory cards. They found one, they're looking for the second one, and footage should be reviewed pretty soon. They're also already looking at footage collected from the trains dash cams, and also interviewing survivors and also the person who was in charge of the construction site. He's detained now. But the focus would be why, I think primarily on why the truck had rolled over in the first place. Did he not put the handbrakes on, or did the brakes malfunction? And about the construction site, I think there's a lot of scrutiny on the owner himself, a man detained right now because he had some bad record in the past with former construction projects. He had his license stripped a few years ago, and people are getting really angry because they're wondering why the government even commissioned a project to this person in the first place.
Well, Catherine, thank you so much for the update. That was our Taiwan correspondent in Taipei, Catherine Wei. You can, of course, keep up with the latest on this story at straitstimes.com, where you can also find more news and videos.
Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below. Once again, I'm Haryanto Diman with Olivia Quay. Join us tomorrow for more stories on A Big Story.